Welcome to this explainer. Look, let's just start things off today with a bit of a calm, supportive reality check. Most founders, creators, and indie hackers fall deeply head over heels in love with building their product. And I get it, building's fun. But in that intense romance with what they're making, they completely forget to design a functional business around it. So today, inspired by the foundational concepts in Business Model Generation by Osterwalder and Pinyer, we're going to definitively separate the product from the business. And we'll look at the actual, proven frameworks that turn your ideas into sustainable enterprises.
Here's our roadmap for today's session. We'll start by explaining why a product is not a business. Then we'll dive into the one-page model map, figure out how to actually capture value, break down 5 models that are working right now in 2026, and finally, we'll run through the model stress test. All right, let's jump right into section 1, product is not a business.
To really make this mindset shift, I want you to think of your product like the engine of a car. It's the core, right? It's powerful, it hums, it's the thing you spent all your time building. But a brilliant engine just sitting there on the factory floor goes absolutely nowhere. It needs a chassis, a transmission, and wheels to actually connect to the road and move forward. Well, your business model is that surrounding vehicle. It's the mechanics that take your brilliant product and reliably, consistently turn it into money and forward momentum.
So what exactly is a business model, anyway? Based on our foundational sources, a business model describes the rationale of how an organization logically creates, delivers, and captures value. It's not just your pricing page or a checkout button. It's the entire architectural blueprint that connects the value you're providing to your customer directly to your actual bank account. Moving right along to section 2, the one-page model map. Now that we actually understand the difference between the product and the business, we need a tool to visualize it. And mapping out a business shouldn't be some solitary exercise where you write a 50-page document that just sits in a drawer completely unread. It really should be a hands-on, highly visual, and continuous process. Using a visual canvas like this creates a shared language. It allows you and your team to sketch things out, debate them, and constantly adjust the elements of your enterprise as the real-world market changes around you. Let's actually break down this one-page model map and its 9 foundational building blocks. I want you to notice how it's divided here. The entire right side, which includes your target audience, the value offered, delivery paths, customer trust, and revenue streams. That side is entirely focused on the customer and the value you bring to them. Meanwhile, the left side, your key assets, core actions, strategic allies, and cost structure is all about how you manage the back-end infrastructure to make that value possible. So you've got value generation on the right and efficiency and costs on the left. The absolutely crucial point to remember here is that the real magic isn't in just filling out these individual boxes like it's a grocery list. True understanding comes from seeing the interdependencies. It's like a giant puzzle. For instance, if you decide to change your delivery paths to reach a brand new target audience, how does that systematically impact your cost structure or your revenue streams? Every single block is connected to the others. You pull one lever and something else moves. Okay, let's get into section 3. How to capture value. When we talk about capturing value, which is just a fancy way of saying making money, there are really 2 primary patterns of revenue generation. The first is transactional. These are your one-time customer payments. It's great because it brings in an immediate influx of cash, but the downside is it requires you to constantly be out there finding new buyers. The second pattern is recurring. These are ongoing payments for continued access to a service or post-purchase support. Recurring revenue provides this incredible, reliable stability, which is exactly why it's so highly prized by founders and investors alike. And within those 2 broad patterns, there are quite a few distinct ways to capture that revenue. You really don't just have to rely on traditional asset sales, selling a standard physical or digital product. We need to think a bit more creatively here. Could you charge usage or subscription fees? What about temporarily granting the right to use an asset through renting or leasing? Could you license out your intellectual property? Or maybe take an intermediary fee for matching 2 other parties together. Remember, the way you charge is just as important as what you're actually charging for. That brings us to section 4, 5 models for 2026.
Let's run through 5 specific shapes that genuinely work right now. Model number 1 is the unbundled corporation. This concept suggests that there are fundamentally 3 different types of businesses tangled up inside a company: managing customer relationships, developing product innovation, and running heavy infrastructure. Instead of trying to do all 3 of those things poorly, a modern software company might focus entirely on pure product innovation, while leaning heavily on external strategic allies, like Amazon Web Services, to handle all that heavy, scale-driven infrastructure. Model number 2 is known as the long tail. Instead of betting the house on one or two massive blockbuster hits, this model actually thrives on offering a massive scope of niche items. Think of a modern indie creator marketplace. They aggregate thousands and thousands of user-generated digital products. Individually, each product might only make a tiny amount, but combined, the sheer volume creates a highly lucrative revenue stream with almost zero inventory costs. Next up, model number 3, multi-sided platforms. This is where you create value simply by facilitating interactions between distinct groups. Imagine a modern matchmaking app that pairs highly specialized freelance developers with high-end enterprise clients. You don't produce the coding talent and you don't produce the enterprise project. Your key asset is the platform itself, and your revenue comes from those intermediary fees. You just need to get both sides to show up for the model to work.
Model number 4 is one we interact with every day, the free or freemium model. Here, at least one substantial customer segment gets a great offer totally for free. But listen, this isn't charity, it's a strategic bait and hook. A high-quality free tier attracts a massive user base. That massive base then either allows you to sell targeted advertising or it naturally converts a dedicated, predictable percentage of those heavy users into paying subscribers for premium upgrades.
Finally, model number 5, open business models. This involves systematically collaborating with outside partners. Look, instead of carrying the massive heavy cost of an internal research and development team, a modern venture might just source its innovations externally. By acquiring R&D from the outside, you drastically cut your fixed costs and you radically speed up your time to market. It's a huge advantage if you can pull it off.
All right, let's wrap this up with section 5, the model stress test. We've got the map, we've got the models, so let's make this actionable for you today. Here is your mentor's blueprint to actually stress test your own projects. Step 1, get a piece of paper and draw out your current idea using those 9 blocks of the one-page model map. Step 2, I want you to aggressively scrutinize the relationship between the right side and the left side. If you decide to add a high-touch customer relationship feature to increase your value, how heavily is that going to spike your baseline cost structure? And step 3, take those assumptions, test them out in the real market, and pivot your map based on actual real-world feedback.
Now, to be completely fair and objective here, we do have to critique this framework just a bit. The map is a brilliant visual tool, for sure, but it is a simplification. Drawing a great model on paper doesn't guarantee you any success. To actually win out there in 2026, you must align this visual model with the harsh realities of execution. You have to factor in your overarching strategy, your actual team structure, and your technological limits. The map is a fantastic starting line, but it is not the finish line.
Which brings us to our final thought. I really want you to look critically at what you are working on right now, today, and ask yourself a hard question. Are you just building a product that you love tinkering with? Or are you actively designing a business model that scales? Grab a pen, draw out those 9 blocks, and start mapping out your true business today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.